World's Yearling Sale. Make plans for the Keeneland September Yearling Sale, September 13th through the 24th. Visit theworldsyearlingsale.com to learn more.
Good morning. It is 9:30, Wednesday, August 4th. This is the TDN Writers Room, presented by Keeneland. My name is Joe Bianca. I'm the associate editor of the Thoroughbred Daily News, back in my Zoom purgatory, just for 1 week.
Good morning. I'm Bill Finley, a correspondent for the Thoroughbred Daily News. My beloved Boston Red Sox has lost 5 in a row. Their season is completely over. Stick a fork in them. Joe, now for the first time, I know what it feels like to be a Jets fan.
Hardy har.
Jonathan Green, general manager of DJ Stable. And I would like to do a shout out, a special happy belated birthday to our wonderful and talented producer, Patty Wolf. Happy 30th birthday, Patty Wolf.
29,
excuse me.
I'll take 30. I'll admit to 30. Thank you so much, guys.
Happy birthday, Patty. The TDN Writers Room is brought to you by Keeneland, home of the World's Yearling Sale. Make plans to attend the Keeneland September Yearling Sale beginning Monday, September 13th. You can learn more at theworldsyearlingsale.com. So we really had a terrific weekend of racing. Last week was a little bit of a downer issue. I saw somebody in the comments. I don't usually read the comments. I saw somebody in the comments complaining about the 4-horse field and the CCA Oaks. And if you think we're going to come on here and celebrate a 4-horse grade 1 in Saratoga, you might be watching the wrong show. I'll just leave it at that. But this weekend, not too much to complain about. We had a really banged up, star-studded weekend of racing, obviously led by Essential Quality in the Jim Dandy. It was a terrific effort. I thought, even though we only got a 98 buyer, I thought, considering the ground loss and considering the way that Luis Saez kind of had to ride him, I thought basically from the half-mile pole, had to ride him a little bit early too to get into the race. I thought it was a really nice effort for him to still grind down, keep me in mind, who got that rail running trip. I thought, it's one of those things about Essential Quality that's really, really admirable. Is I know it's a cliche, but he just finds a way to win. And it's, he's only lost once in his career. And that was when he had a little bit of a trouble trip in the Derby. But he just gets the job done. He's not always brilliant. I think, his most brilliant race, of course, was the Belmont. He's a little bit more of a grinder, but I haven't seen the sheet figure for this race, but it's got to be a lot bigger, relatively speaking, than the buyer. And, he's the horse to beat going into the Travers. Do I think that he's separated himself so much that someone else can't come and get him if they have a big, August, September, October? No, I don't think so. But, he's just an extremely, extremely admirable horse. And it's great to see him run. And it's great that he ran in the Jim Dandy instead of just taking off from the Belmont to the Travers. I think that's kind of more of what we have a problem with is horses running 3 times in 6 months, when there's no reason for them not to run. So it was great to see him in the Jim Dandy, great to see him in the Travers. Don't think he's going to scare off a ton of contenders, which is good. I think it'll still be a good size field, but nevertheless, he had a monster effort, I thought, considering the ground loss. Not as big as the Belmont effort, but still a very good effort. And I don't want to take up too much time because I'm wondering what these guys thought, but the other horse I think you have to mention and talk about is Jackie's Warrior on Sunday in the Amsterdam. This was a race where it rained a ton. Basically, right before the race, there was a half-hour delay. His only other race previously on a sloppy track was in the Southwest, when he went to the front and kind of got an easy lead and backed up and was a well-beaten third. That was the race that knocked him off the Derby trail. I think they were smart not to keep pressing forward, and try to make him a router. I think it was a good idea to make him a one-turn sprinter. And damn, has he become a dynamite one-turn sprinter. And just an absolutely dazzling horse to watch. And shout out to fan of the show and friend of the show, Kirk Robinson. Another big win for their barn star. And he runs so fast. He you don't see horses click off 21 and 43 in races, first of all, that are beyond 6 furlongs. The Amsterdam was 6.5, did the same thing in the Pat Day mile, which was obviously a mile. And then the Woody Stevens, he didn't go quite that fast, but I think he still went 44 flat after missing the break and still stuck around. That is huge, big time speed. And it's a pleasure to watch him. He was basically eased up for the final 16th of that race. He got a 101 buyer. That doesn't matter to me. It's the context of the way he ran, the splits he set. He broke everybody's heart and he kept going in the lane. What a performance. Those are the two that stuck out to me. I'm sure you guys have some opinions.
Yeah, Joe, I agree with you on virtually everything you said. And I don't have a whole lot to add. to what Essential Quality did. But I think you're right. And we keep waiting for this horse to wow us. And it's just not going to happen, which, as you point out, is okay. That's not what he does. Boy, when I called first captain a grinder or what he's back, everybody was like, what the heck? That's such a knock on a horse. But it's not. It's okay to be a grinder, because at the end of the day, if you have your nose in front of the wire, no matter how you did it, all that's important is that you win. And a couple other things about that. I assume that Brad Cox, who was obviously a very good trainer, had Travers in mind in the Jim Dandy. And, nobody has horse comes out anymore and has horses not ready to go or only has them at 80%. But you got to think he can improve off that race and be even better in the Travers. With Hot Rod Charlie not pointing to the Travers, we don't know yet what he's going to do. I don't believe Mandaloon is in the Travers picture either. Obviously, Cox would want to run Mandaloon against Essential Quality. He's absolutely the horse to beat in the Travers. And maybe if he wins that race, depending on what happens in the Breeders' Cup, he might be pretty close to clinching a 3-year-old championship. We'll see about that. So a couple of races that you did mention, and coming into the weekend, we thought, and I just talked about First Captain, that he was going to be kind of the new bright star for the Travers Stakes. Well, he totally ran a clinker in the Curlin, a bad third when it looked like he could absolutely win that race. And then remind me, every time Calumet Farms is 35-1 in a stakes race, please remind me, Joe, and have me bet, and then we'd be rich. These guys only win. And I'm talking about Lexingtonian. His last race, he was 6th in the Met Mile, beaten 45 lengths. But they have this knack for winning with these big long shots. California, the Bing Crosby, I thought was notable because Dr. Scheibel, a 3-year-old, you never see that this time of year. 3-year-old taking on older horses, wins the Bing Crosby. He'll certainly be reckoned with, a force to be reckoned with down the road, and probably in the Breeders' Cup Sprint.
Yeah, and you're hitting on all the points that all the races that I was going to talk about as well, Bill. I mean, Essential Quality. I think I'm a bigger fan than you guys are of him, because I think that you say he hasn't run a brilliant race, and I think he's run a couple of great races. I mean, the Belmont, was a 109 buyer, and was just an outstanding. Again, I can use the term grinder, but an outstanding run down the lane. The only race he ran that was off the board was he lost by a length in a very difficult field, obviously the Kentucky Derby. And he's done all this without Lasix. Which I think is an important point, for Stallion prospect going forward, that if we're going to be eliminating Lasix, for the most part out of stake races, and or graded stake races, you need to see that in a horse. And I know Run Happy, they advertised the hell out of the fact that he never ran on anything. And a lot of people kind of resonated with that message. And I think it's only becoming more valid of a point that the horse has never run on Lasix and is still putting in these kind of performances. He's never lost other than in the Kentucky Derby by a length. So I was glad to see it. I mean, in essence, and Joe, you're a better handicapper than I am, obviously, but you would think that he went from 69, 88 buyer, 95, 96, 97, 100 to 109, that he was going to bounce at some point. And this was his bounce race, and he still won. So that was still an impressive thing. So I think that they're just trying to crank him up again to get ready for these other big races coming up. And he's just, he's the epitome of consistency and what you would look for in a stallion prospect when you're breeding down the road. He's got the looks, obviously he's got the pedigree, and he's done it all, basically on his own volition and own, talents. Dr. Scheibel was a horse that I really was impressed with out in the Bing Crosby, winning a grade 1 as a 3-year-old. Bill, you mentioned, stepped up and ran against older horses and wasn't even the favorite in that race. It was a difficult race with 8 Rings and CZ Rocket and a couple others in there. So that was a really, cool race. Lexingtonian was so much fun to watch a 34-1 shot win. And that was a difficult race. I mean, there's a reason why he was in the 30, the 1 range. Mischievous Alex didn't run his race. They said he had a breathing problem afterwards, which is understandable. Freeze and Fire is a nice horse. Strike Power was a grade 2 winner. Whitmore, won the Breeders' Cup Sprint last year. I mean, and those are horses that he left in the dust. So that was kind of fun to watch him. And again, fun to watch a trainer not named, Cox, Brown, Maker, or Pletcher win a race. I mean, Jack Sisterton is just quietly moving up the ranks as one of these up and coming trainers that everyone should take notice of. And we talked to him on the show, and he was just an impressive guy. So I was really pleased to see that. Cross Border winning the Bowling Green. It's a grade 2. I think we need to mention it. Ran almost a lifetime best for Mike Maker in that race at Saratoga. And then I'm going to do a little congratulations.
Far be it from you. Far be it from you.
Far be it from me. Exactly. Listen, this is my pulpit. I'm allowed to talk about stuff like this. But Diabolic, a filly of ours that went up to Canada and won the My Deer after winning first time out at Gulfstream Park. So now she's won on 2 different surfaces, going 2 different distances. And we're hoping that she's going to be a Breeders' Cup candidate. So, so kudos to us for having hopefully another nice young 2-year-old, down the stretch. And also it was fun because the Nexus Racing Club is also a part of that horse with us. And that's just a really fun group to be associated with. They're very young and enthusiastic about the industry. So shout out to Nexus Racing and our friends there as well.
Yeah, no, I did a story on Nexus back in the day when they were first starting, and they're all, very, very smart and likable. And I think are trying to, move forward young participation in racing, which is a huge deal and something that racing really has a deficit of. So I totally appreciate what they're doing. And it was good to see you guys partner on that. And yeah, she's pretty nice filly, I got to say.
Yeah, hopefully. And I was glad that they were able to represent in their colors on that race. That was the other fun thing, is that we got so many nice tweets and comments about, they designed their colors and there's meaning to it, with the 3 partners that started it. And that's why they have certain, stripes on their silk. So that was really fun. That was almost as much fun as winning was, just, all the cool feedback that we got from the club and the enthusiasm. And that, listen, we talk about all the negative stories in the industry, and God knows there's a bunch of them. It's nice to be able to highlight a really nice group that's trying to do it the right way.
Yeah, absolutely. We can shout them out by name. The 3 founders, Derek Sutton, Sophie Shore, and Sam Bucinich. They really have made inroads in that way in recruiting young people to racing. And who better do it than young people themselves, rather than, people from up on high in racing thinking, what do the youngsters like these days? So shout out to them. Shout out to you guys for that victory. I'm looking forward to hopefully seeing her in the Breeders' Cup and one of a handful of European purchases for DJ Stable as well. So that's something to look forward to. But just to follow up, a couple other things you guys said. Couldn't agree more on Lexitonian and Jack Sisterson. Listen, obviously Calumet is steeped in history. Calumet is an indelible part of racing and breeding history. But you got to call a spade and say that they were irrelevant, basically, for a pretty good amount of time. And Jack Sisterson, a guy who I think nobody really had heard of a couple of years ago, except for people who were really, really inside racing, has brought them back to relevancy and has done it with overachieving horses like Lexitonian. Now, Lexitonian is a horse that's been knocking on the door at the grade 1 level. You guys mentioned the Bing Crosby and Dr. Scheibel winning over the weekend. It actually 3-year-old went last year with Collusion Illusion, and Lexitonian just missed in that race. And what I loved about Lexitonian even running in that race is he had a gate incident in the Vanderbilt the week before, and Jack Sisterson said, screw it. He got scratched at the gate. We're shipping to California, and we're running into Big Crosby. That's what I love to see. I'd love to see stuff like that instead of like, oh, well, maybe he needs a couple of months off, on the farm because he got scared in the gate. No, he said, let's go for it. And he almost got it. And this weekend he got it. And also one of my hobby horses, pet peeves, aggressive riding pays off. Jose Lezcano is an aggressive rider. He knows how to get position early, and that really paid off in that race. So shout out to all the connections for Lexitonian winning the Vanderbilt. And just to touch on Essential Quality, I don't think that this was not a brilliant race. I think that this, like I said, if you look at the sheet number, I haven't seen what it is yet, but I guarantee you it's a big number, and it's probably a negative number. And there's nothing wrong with grinding out wins, if that's how you want to say it. Whatever the circumstances, find a way on the lead, just off the lead, closing from way back. That's what we look for in horses. We don't like these one-dimensional speed horses who, if you don't get an easy lead, you back up and finish 30 lengths behind the ambulance. We like horses that can adapt to circumstances, and he is one of those horses, and is very, very likable in that way. Shows up every time and runs his race no matter what the pace scenario is, and can't wait to see him in the Travers in the rest of the year.
Yeah, and Joe, he actually won going 6 furlongs, 12 furlongs, and every distance in between. I mean, that's an incredible
yeah.
thought when you look at horses like that. And he's done it all. I mean, as a 2-year-old, early in his career, as a 3-year-old, and hopefully he'll be able to carry that out to run against older horses. But I think it's really shaping up that the Breeders' Cup Classic is really going to be an exciting race this year.
Yeah, I'm not going to hold my breath that he's going to come back as a 4-year-old. Maybe, hopefully, doubt it.
That ain't happening, folks.
Yeah, because like you said, and the thing is, like you said, your first point, negates your second point that he might come back. The versatility that is going to be beyond just being a son of Tappet. Blue blood. He is an extremely versatile stallion prospect. Like you would think that he could get you any kind of horse. So yeah, he's probably going to be gone after this year, but we're going to enjoy watching him while he's still around. The TDN Writers Room is brought to you by Spendthrift Farm. Some action over the weekend for Spendthrift on track, and then potentially in the future. Gormley had a couple of 2-year-old winners. He's a very, very nice early first crop stallion producer, I think, so far. I think he's got 5 or 6 winners. He had Classic Man, who won by 4 lengths at Louisiana Downs, and then a filly named Mama Arena, who won at Ellis Park for Kenny McPeak. He's got 6 winners. Thanks to our associate producer, Katie Ritz, for the info. And then also Jackie's Warrior. They have an interest in him as well. Future Spendthrift stallion. We talked about how dazzling he was in the Amsterdam, and man, they're kind of stacking up these big time sprinters now. They had Lord Nelson, then they had Matoli, who we're really looking forward to seeing his horses on the track, and then now Jackie's Warrior as well. And I wonder, John, if you're looking for a sprint sire, I'm not sure that you can do better than a Son of McLean's Music that can do what Jackie's Warrior is doing right now.
No question about it. And the nice thing about Jackie's Warrior is not only that he, won early, which you would expect based on his pedigree. It looks like now that they found his niche in that 6-7 furlong, maybe 1-turn mile type race, that he's just blowing horses away. And you mentioned earlier in the show about just how explosive he is. But you like to see a horse that not only was early and precocious and has speed, but also is staying sound. And now the horse has run, I believe 9 or 10 times and hit the board all but one race. So he is an exciting prospect to see. And I know the pinhookers are going to be very excited to see his progeny because he was so early and explosive. And that's what, that's right up their alley.
Yeah. And like I said, another dynamite sprinter to add to the roster. So we'll be right back after this message from Spendthrift Farm. The TDN Writers Room is brought to you by West Point Thoroughbreds. Owning multiple Great Stakes winning racehorses like Decorated Invader is attainable with a racing partnership with West Point Thoroughbreds. Partnerships enable you to spread your ownership across several horses for less than it costs to own one horse alone. This increases your racetrack action and your chances for a big horse. Learn more about why West Point Thoroughbreds is the gold standard in racing partnerships at westpointtv.com. A little bit of West Point news this week. Ken Thaka, who was a very nice horse for them, was retired this week. He won the 2018 San Vicente as well as the Laz Barrera that year on the dirt. And then he ran second to Alexandra in the Grade 1 Jaipur on turf last year. So a very versatile prospect for them. He was adopted actually by a partner, John Haynes, and moved to his new home at a ranch in Oregon on Sunday. Another great tidbit. Shout out to Katie. And also some action on the track. Strong Silent was an $80,000 Keeneland September purchase. Broker maiden on Sunday at Ellis. And also they're going to have Turned Aside in partnership with some guy named John Green coming up in the Highlander Stakes in a couple of weeks at Woodbine. So best of luck to you guys and all the partners at West Point. All right. So we need the Law and Order chunk gavel sound for the show because we're it seems like we're obligated now to do a legal segment every week. But this is some really big news surrounding the FBI indictments, and that now that case is finally starting to work its way through the courts. And there have been a couple of big developments in the past week specifically that I think point to a very obvious conclusion that is very bad for Jason Service, not a legal expert, but in the past week, Jorge Navarro, who is obviously the other huge named client or alleged doper in this case, and yesterday Christian Ryan, who was a former veterinarian for these guys, who was pitching this SGF 1000 drug allegedly. Although he's going to plead guilty, so maybe I don't want to say allegedly. Either way, both of these guys were going to plead not guilty and then change their pleas to guilty. Now, this came on the same day that Jason Service's attorney, who, as Bill noted, coincidentally, maybe not so coincidentally, also represents Andrew Cuomo, who's in a bit of a firestorm right now. He is trying to get the wiretaps thrown out, the government wiretaps that caught Jason Service talking about all these drugs with Jorge Navarro and his other alleged co-conspirators. He's trying to get these tossed out on Fourth Amendment grounds. Fourth Amendment is the right to privacy and not being surveilled by the government without a legitimate warrant, blah, 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 which is fine. Like I completely respect that part of the Constitution and it serves a purpose. But taking these all together, taking all three of these developments, Christian Ryan changing his plea to guilty, Jorge Navarro probably changing his plea to guilty, and Jason Service trying to get the wiretaps thrown out on basically a technicality, suggests to me that Jason Service is going to be the fall guy for the rest of these defendants going forward. Because this was not the original plan. The original plan was to plead not guilty and to fight it case by case. It seems like now there is some cooperation going on to implicate Jason Service as the mastermind, for lack of a better term, in this alleged scheme. And he, kind of make him not just one of the alleged doping trainers, but also an alleged, supplier. And he's connecting people to connecting trainers to veterinarians and this and that. I think everybody's going to try to make him into the mastermind. But Bill has done a little bit more research on this than me. So I'm wondering what his conclusions are from these recent developments.
Yeah, Joe, that's an interesting theory. I didn't quite come to the same conclusion because every time I think I figured this thing out, I'm wrong or it doesn't make sense to me. First of all, on the Service thing, again, not being a lawyer, but just using common sense, I think this was a real, desperation, 3rd and 40 on your own 3-yard line move from the legal team to try to get this stuff thrown out. If they somehow succeed, I don't think they can convict the Service because that's really where all their evidence is. But look, obviously this person, if she's representing Andrew Cuomo as well, name is Rita Glavin. She's the real deal. I mean, he's not messing around with Jacoby and Myers and stuff like that. So, we'll see what happens with that. But Joe, I'm going to raise a whole kind of different subject. And to me, the thing that I don't understand about this case, and it's driving me crazy, and as a reporter, I'm supposed to answer these questions. I haven't been able to. But now you've got several people who are drug suppliers, like you said, particularly this Christian Reen guy, who have pled guilty. And we know that they have been selling drugs to far more than Service and Navarro. This is what Christian Reen had to say when the judge asked him yesterday to basically, rat himself out. What were you doing wrong? He says, I marketed and distributed interstate commerce, misbranded and adulterated drugs to trainers and veterinarians of thoroughbred racehorses in an effort to assist those trainers and veterinarians to improve the performance of those racehorses through the administration of such misbranded and adulterated drugs, while avoiding detection of that scheme by federal and state drug regulators. So he just, not only did he admit what he did, he admitted that he was selling this stuff to plenty of people. I don't understand why we haven't had not just 1 or 2 more indictments, but why the floodgates haven't opened. Hey, Christian, who else were you selling it to? Well, I'll be glad to supply you with my records. Here's the names of 85 other trainers that bought and used this stuff from me. Why is this not happening? I don't have the question. Excuse me, I don't have the answer, but it's driving me crazy because you would think it would be logical that these guys would supply the government with information, not just on Service and Navarro, but on trainers A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, et cetera. So, that's the thing that I'm still waiting to happen. But, it is interesting to see these things finally kind of fall into place. And I think you'll see a lot more people plead guilty, change their pleas to guilty within the next 6 months or so.
when we first started talking about this, back in March of last year, I remember looking up a statistic that like 90% of all, indicted individuals ended up, going to jail or pleading guilty. And there's a reason why. It's because they just have so much evidence against these guys. And Bill, you're right. This is the Hail Mary, lost soul kind of throw that the attorney is putting out there, because it's the only way they're going to be able to get the damning evidence, out of the box on this, out of bounds, I should say. And it almost seems to me, when they had the dozens of people that were indicted, that we knew it was going to be a matter of once one domino falls and once somebody pleads, that the rest of them are going to, jump the ship like rats off a sinking cruiser. And I think that's what's happening. And Jason Service, whether he's the mastermind or whether he's the linchpin of it all, it almost doesn't matter. He's, I think, going to be the last guy standing when the music stops, and he's not going to have a chair because everyone else is turning on him. I really, truly believe there's going to be more indictments coming down the line. I think that's what these guys are not only giving damning evidence, they're pleading guilty, they're pleading out, and they're not only giving damning evidence to the remainder of the people who were indicted, but I'm hoping that they're also giving additional lists and names and evidence of other people that are coming down the pike. At least that's the scare tactic that the industry is putting on right now, is that, pre-HISA, because who knows when that's actually going to get implemented with the pending lawsuits against them, that the boogeyman that's out there right now is, well, these guys are turning over and they're giving state's evidence to the feds, and, your name is going to be on it, trainer X. So you don't want to do that. I thought the other interesting part of reading the transcripts of the deposition was, Bill, you'll remember this when we were kids. Remember the push that we were going to have to learn the metric system, because America was going to get on the metric system, right, and be in the same, mode of measurement as everybody else. Well, with these cases coming out, whether it was, Baffert or Service and Navarro, we've gone from learning about picograms, which I understand are really, really small, to the one vet who said, they asked him, how much of this, SGF 1000 do you sell? And he said, ass loads. Now, I don't remember that being in the metric system or in the American system of measurement, but we've gone from a picogram to an ass load. And depending on whose ass you're looking at, it could be a lot.
Yeah, so I always love when that quote pops up. It pops up inevitably. I think TD, who does a lot of reporting on this, likes that quote a lot because he always includes it in all of his stories. But yeah, just to go back to TD's story actually from yesterday, which is really really exhaustively reported. I suggest you read it. It's in today's TDN. Just a couple of quick tidbits. This is the fifth person to plead guilty, counting Christian Ryan or Reen. And then if Navarro, switches like we think it's gonna be six. But another thing that was an interesting part of it was, I'm going to quote here from TD's story. Also revealed for the first time during Tuesday's hearing was the staggering amount of purse money, $26 million, that federal prosecutors are alleging Service won illegally by racing horses purportedly hopped up by drugs that Ryan's practice provided. Now, so he says, for perspective, that figure represents half of the $52 million in purses that Service's trainees bankrolled during his entire 2-decade training career between 2001 and 2020. The significance of that is because according to federal, again, I'm quoting TD here, because according to federal sentencing guidelines, ill-gotten monetary gains within the $25 million to $65 million range will escalate the nature of Ryan's offense by 22 levels, as the assistant U.S. attorney said. So that is significant. First of all, I don't know how you figure that. I don't know how you figure the purse money for over a 20, I don't know. It's hard for me to figure which horses were doped up, which horses, won because they were drugged. I know, if you want to go to maximum security, if you want to say maximum security was drugged up, then that's an easy one. That's the Saudi Cup purse. But overall, it seems like a very hard thing to estimate and to nail down. But I think that part is very significant, that this is just above the range that ratchets up all these charges for this guy. And then, you would think eventually for Jason Service as well. I guess maybe this would be a good time to put up the tip lines for USADA and the Thoroughbred Racing Protective Bureau. One of them is 410-398-8255. 3641. That's the TRPB tip line. And then the USADA tip line, 877-752-9253. So if you don't want to wait for any more indictments, you got some info right now. I suggest you hit one of those lines up and see if you can speed up the process a little bit, because Bill's right. I was expecting more indictments by this point. I'm surprised that there haven't been more big names that have come out, but there's still time for this case to play out. It's still time for the Canaries to sing and Jorge Navarro, because I think his potential switch of his plea is the big fish. He is the other big marquee name other than Jason Service that has been entangled in this thing, and I think he probably knows a lot. In terms of other trainers and other big name guys who have been allegedly using these drugs. So yeah, that's it. We finally got some action on this. We were hoping for some movement for a long time, and then COVID slowed it down. Seems like the wheels are starting to turn. And again, my assumption, and this is a completely novice layman's assumption, is that most of these guys are going to try to turn on Jason Service and make him the baddest of the bad guys. But I guess we'll see as more pleas come in.
All kidding aside, and I know I like to joke around, but he's just over that threshold from a monetary standpoint. But I wonder if they can make the argument that they never got paid on the purse money from that, and therefore he would be below the limit. I'm just wondering. I mean, just because they're so close to the number, I'm sure that's why they pumped it up to that number so they could plea it down. Yeah. But I'm wondering like how you would argue that, because they never actually received any of that money. So was it technically won?
Yeah, I mean, well, they got this guy to say it. That was the main thing, is they got, Christian Ryan to say it. But yeah, it does seem like, well, it just so happens that Jason Service made $25,001.
Right, exactly.
Allegedly drugging horses. But yeah, so we got some interesting wheels turning now, and there's definitely going to be more developments going forward, and we'll keep an eye on it.
At least there's good momentum going on, which is
definitely. Yep, we're steaming towards I think a more satisfying conclusion to this thing. Joining the West Point Thoroughbreds partnership can vault you into the world of instant camaraderie among people surrounding high-class horses and stakes action for a fraction of the cost of trying to do it on your own. Learn more at westpointtb.com. We'll be right back after this message from our friends at West Point Thoroughbreds.
All the thrills. Fraction of the bills. Experience the power of the partnership. Change your life, make new friends, and compete at the highest level of thoroughbred racing. West Point Thoroughbreds, the gold standard in racing partnerships. Visit westpointtb.com.
All right, so we're thrilled once again this week to welcome a new sponsor, Woodford Thoroughbreds. We are huge fans of Woodford. They do a little bit of everything in racing, breeding, sales prep. They've got their hands in everything, do a great job. A lot of really smart people behind Woodford, and we're super thrilled to have them aboard. With that, Woodford is honored to be part of a Fasig-Tipton's 100th year anniversary of selling horses at Saratoga. They have 3 yearlings going into the sale: an Into Mischief colt, New York bred Justify colt, and a quality road filly out of a mare who won the Prioress, the grade 2, which is coming up in a little bit at Saratoga. And for more information on each horse, you can go to ywoodford.com. The 3 yearlings, like I said, Into Mischief colt out of the Tappet mare Tension. Her dam is the 2 times grade 1 winner, Tough Tiz Assist. And then the Justify colt out of Stakes Place, Dorothy's Aurora. The quality road filly, who I mentioned, is out of Lucian Ethel, who won the 2016 grade 2 Prioress at Saratoga. Pretty powerful lineup coming up for that Fasig sale. And then, they had Tiz the Magician as well recently on the track, won the grade 3 Cougar 2 Stakes. It was his 2nd graded stakes win. And it was also named TVG's Performance of the Week. Also owned by My Racehorse and Spendthrift Farm, another friend of the show in Spendthrift. And the goal is to be in the Breeders' Cup Marathon towards the end of the year. Already won at Del Mar, which is where it's going to be. And Tiz the Magician is a graduate of the 2018 Saratoga Select Sale, which is coming up next week. So get the Woodford edge. And John, I'm sure you have a couple of opinions on the yearlings coming up.
Yeah, look, anytime you have an Into Mischief colt, and it's good enough to be in the select part of the sale, it's going to be a nice horse. You mentioned all his credentials. Interestingly enough, on the quality road filly out of Lucian Ethel, I remember running against Lucian Ethel. I remember running behind Lucine Ethel in the prior S, as well as a couple of sprint stakes. And she was just an outstanding sprinter. And she's a daughter of During, which, you don't hear too many, top racehorses, that are by During. So, that filly really had a lot of talent, and she way outran, her pedigree and was a grade 2 winner. So I'm curious to see, the length of this Quality Road filly that they have. And then the other thing that I thought was interesting, Joe, is that, Woodford is selling a Justified colt. It's his first year and this is his first crop. It's a New York bred, and they opted to put the horse into the select sale versus having it be probably the best bred horse in the New York bred sale. It's coming up next week. So they must really think that this colt is justified to be in the select sale, no pun intended. But to me, that's a really sign of confidence that he must be just a special colt, that they bypassed putting him, to be the top bred horse in the New York sale and put him into the select sale. I'm looking forward to seeing him in particular.
Yeah, I mean, he can't do much better than Sire Power than Into Mischief, Holly Road, and Justify. But you should intend the puns, John. More than anything, the sponsors are paying for the John Green pun. So leave that in next time. But yeah, we're so glad to have everybody at Woodford Thoroughbreds aboard. We really appreciate the support. And, I'm not just saying this because they're a sponsor now, that they really do things the right way. And like I said, they have their hands in a lot of things in racing, very diverse operations. So welcome aboard to Woodford Thoroughbreds, and we look forward to a growing partnership with you guys. So we had some sad news from last Friday. Unfortunately, we had another, pretty darn good stallion die. He wasn't Galileo in terms of his influence, but he did pretty well. Bernardini died last Friday, and he that struck a chord with me because he was, Bernardini, he blew up the first year that I was at Saratoga for the entire summer. I spent my first summer at Saratoga in 2006. And that was the year that he won the Barbaro Preakness. I think he was going to win that race no matter what. Unfortunately, obviously, Barbaro had the incident. But Bernardini came up to Saratoga. I remember him winning the Jim Dandy just incredibly impressively in the slop. I was at a wedding, and I was so enamored with Bernardini that I was like sneaking out and like watching on my phone the Jim Dandy, and I was so thrilled to see that he had won that race. And then I was there for the Travers as well when he beat Bluegrass Cat. And he came back later that year and won the Jockey Club Gold Cup devastatingly easily. He was beaten by Invisor in the Breeders' Cup Classic, but I thought he was best in that race. It was a little bit of an early move from Javier Castellano, and he just got run down late. He was champion 3-year-old, but to me, he was the first big horse that I ever touched. And that was really important to me. And that was one of the things that in my early racing life kind of cemented me as a racing fan and as a horse lover for good. I went around the Saratoga backstretch one day that summer, and Tom Albertrani was very kind to let us look around his barn. I remember Songster as well was there. He was a really cool horse, but I just put my hand on Bernardini's nose and was just like, I felt his power. I know that sounds corny, but he was just such a classy animal and such a monster in terms of talent, and a very, at least in my experience, was a very well-tempered horse as well. And, he turned out to be a very good sire. I think he might've gotten off to a little bit of a slow start in his stallion career, but then he really came on. And also a great broodmare sire was something that I noticed about him over the years. A lot of his daughters produced very nice horses. And it was just unfortunate to lose him because, he wasn't ancient. He was only 18 years old. So that was a little bit unfortunate. And I just want to extend condolences to everybody, that worked with him or, at Darley that had any kind of connection with him whatsoever, and Tom Albertrani as well, because he was an absolute superstar on the racetrack and a very good sire as well in his own right. John?
And again, we talk about royally bred horses. I mean, you really, you look at his top side and bottom side of his pedigree, and it just screamed, blue blood. I mean, you have APND on the top, and Cara Rafael, who was an $800,000 graded stake winner in her own right. And in the beginning, we bred to Bernardini almost every year from the time that he stood at stud, and his pedigree, his stud fee usually ranged between 25 and 40. It didn't really go out of that realm, that range too often, but it was because he was just very, very consistent. And whenever we had a filly that we come off the racetrack that we weren't sure if she was going to be, a top broodmare prospect, we would breed her to Bernardini, basically with the idea of, okay, he's going to throw a good solid horse for us, and we're going to know if the mare has any ability to pass on her genetics or not. He was known for having, good sons, cavorting, Stay Thirsty, Alpha, To Honor and Serve. They were all almost $2 million grade one winners. But Joe, you alluded to this before. You mentioned it before that he's getting known as a top broodmare sire. And case in point, in 2020, usually, I should say before 2020, usually when you look at a stallion, the colts are going to outsell the fillies. That's just usually the kind of the rule of thumb. And in 2020, his numbers, Bernardini's numbers were as such. His weanling colts averaged 55,000. The fillies averaged 148,000. The yearling average in 2020 for Bernardini, his colt average was 37,000. The filly average was 80,000. And the 2-year-olds, 100,000 for the colts and 253,000 for the fillies. So people in the industry are noticing that the fillies, you want to have a daughter of Bernardini because they have the genetic wherewithal to throw top racehorses. And he was too young to leave us. But thankfully, because of the way Darley managed him, there's a lot of daughters that are out there that are going to carry on his legacy. And you're going to be talking about daughters of Bernardini, almost, I think as much as we talk about daughters of AP Indy or daughters of Secretariat or daughters of Alidar. I mean, I think that he's going to be that kind of influential broodmare sire for our industry.
Yeah, no, for sure. And those are great stats. And he was also one of the kind of the last great sons of AP Indy as well. There were a couple later on, like Honor Code, but I thought, he was one of the last like superstar sons of AP Indy. He's going to carry on that line as well. Obviously, one of the foundational sires of the last 30, 40 years in America. But good stats from John, and it's interesting to see that laid out, that he was, he was known as time went on as a superstar broodmare sire. And yeah, like I said, not to make it about me, but he was one of those horses that really kind of cemented my love for racing. And he was appointment viewing for me, and I loved watching him. I love that I got to meet him as well. So like I said, condolences to everybody at Darley and everybody that worked with him at any point. He was a terrific horse and a very good stallion as well. The TDN Writers Room is brought to you by the Minnesota Thoroughbred Association's 2021 yearling sale coming August 29th at Canterbury Park. A quality selection of yearlings from top Kentucky stallions like Tapwrit, Race Day, Practical Joke, Cross Traffic, and Wicked Strong. Regional yearling sales have proven to be a great source for affordable and classy future racehorses. Download a catalog today at minnesotabred.com. We'll be right back after this message from the Minnesota Thoroughbred Association's 2021 yearling sale.
They're chasing Clickbait, who spurts clear by 5. It is Clickbait with a keen turn of speed, but Clickbait and Roy Mascherino's are gone. But Friday Night Star is going to debut victoriously in a stakes race. Friday Night Star is the star. Ready to run away, handling the distance with poise, and ready to run away is the Minnesota Oaks champion. Dom Plata slowly edging clear. Dom Plata with another display of excellence is the Futurity champion.
The TDN Writers Room is brought to you by Legacy Bloodstock. You think that 50 years combined experience in the horse business could benefit your program? Give Tommy or Wendy a call. They personally advise on each horse as if they were their own. All right, some action for Legacy grads over the weekend. We talked about last week about them having their 100th black type winner, which is a huge accomplishment, but right back on the track with some success. Hillstone Martini was an $80,000 Fasig October Legacy grad, broke her maiden on Saturday at Indiana Grand for Kirk and Judy Robinson, friends of the show, fans of the show, Jackie's Warriors owners. Obviously, she's the 6th Legacy grad 2-year-old winner so far this summer, which again, I have no context for that, but it seems pretty damn good, John. Would you agree?
That's very impressive. Yeah. That is really impressive, especially at this stage of the game. Yeah. Yeah.
And then also, in the Jim Dandy, Lauban was a $260,000 Keeneland September Legacy grad. If you remember, he won the Jim Dandy as a big upsetter, 27-1 back in the day, not too long ago. I feel like that was a little less than 10 years ago. And then Keep Me in Mind, the runner-up of the Jim Dandy was by Lauban. So, obviously some connection there over the last 10 or so years in a huge 3-year-old race at Saratoga. So 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds, Legacy has got you covered. All right, so I wanted to mention this. This was kind of big news that Fasig-Tipton has partnered with Crypto.com, which is obviously a cryptocurrency company, to start accepting payments at the upcoming sale, which is the Saratoga Select Yearling Sale, to accept crypto payments and make crypto part of the portfolio in terms of what people can use to pay for the horses they buy, which I think is a really big deal, honestly. And it's kind of the way the world is going. I'm not 100% sold that crypto is the future. I think it's, I'm not a monetary expert, but I think it's part of the future. I don't know if it's the entire future. I think there's still a lot of questions to be sorted out in terms of how it's going to be regulated going forward. But this is a big deal, and it gives me an excuse, let's be honest, to yell at people about Zed Run, because I come on here and I talk about Zed Run and how it's blowing up in popularity in the crypto world. And I really haven't seen any racing partnerships outside of the Preakness one. The Preakness did a good job in partnering with Zed Run for that race. They offered like Preakness NFTs, and they were auctioning off virtual horses. So I thought that was really good. But I haven't seen anything else from anybody, from any track, from any jurisdiction, from any organization whatsoever, trying to grab hold of this godsend that racing has in terms of this crypto virtual racing game that is growing in popularity. And the thing, and I can post this on Twitter, but I've taken screenshots. I follow Zed Run, and almost without fail, under every single one of their posts, there's someone who says, I got into horse racing, actual horse racing, because of this. I saw the other day at Emerald Downs, they had a gathering of people who were Seattle Zed Run users, and they got together and they went to the track at Emerald Downs. They probably doubled the attendance at Emerald Downs that day, just by a few dozen of them going out there. Why can't anybody grab hold of this thing? That racing really did nothing to deserve. We didn't do anything to deserve this. This is organic. This is an organic racing related booming industry. You're part of a booming industry that's blowing up. And I just want people to realize that this is a crucial opportunity. We do not get a lot of opportunities in racing to grab new fans, especially new younger fans with disposable income, and bring them into the sport. It's like the vexing question that we have in racing all the time. And we talked about Nexus Racing Club before, and they're doing a good job of it, trying to recruit young people into the business. This is an obvious way to do it. I'm not a marketer. I'm not going to lay it out for you. I'm not smart enough to know exactly how to do it, but there's got to be some kind of partnership, cross-promotion thing that people smarter than me in racing can grab hold of. Because if you're not a part of this thing that's exploding independent of you, that has to do with racing and is growing racing as well as its own business, then I think you're screwing up, and you're really, you're missing the point here, because this is something that's only going to get bigger, crypto in general, but this Zed Run's going to get bigger as well. And that's just my little rant right there. I want to see people in racing grab a hold of this, because it is a godsend, and it's already creating new fans in racing when we've done nothing. What imagine if we do something and try and create like a marriage here or something. Anyway, please, somebody out there, contact Zed Run, do some promotion other than the Preakness. God damn. All right. That out of the way, we have a huge racing weekend this weekend. Who knows? Maybe there'll be some Zed Run fans at the track at Saratoga. Obviously the headline is the Whitney. It's going to be a very, very exciting race. We've got Max Field. We've got a Swiss Skydiver. We've got Happy Saver in there as well. It's a huge race, obviously, on the calendar at Saratoga, the marquee race for older horses, going 1 1/8 on the dirt. But before that, we have some action even on Friday. We got a couple of gradeds on Friday at Saratoga. We've got the Grade 2 Hall of Fame Stakes. Obviously, the Hall of Fame induction ceremony will be Friday morning. We also have the Troy Stakes sprinting, very nice field. Grade 3 going 5.5 furlongs. We have the Sorrento on Friday night as well at Del Mar. A nice little 10 o'clock post time for all of my soldiers at TDN working through that night. And then we have the Kentucky Downs preview day at Ellis Park, which, Kentucky Downs right around the corner, one of our favorite meets. We have the Glens Falls. We have the Yellow Ribbon, so 2 turf races for older fillies and mares on either side of the continent. Obviously, Glens Falls is a marathon race going 1.5 miles. West Virginia Derby, you got some action at Mountaineer if that's your kink. Got a couple of nice horses in there, probably get 7 or 8 horses. What else do we have? We got the Lure at Saratoga, the Best Pal, another big 2-year-old race out at Del Mar. So lots of good action. Saratoga Derby, a race that's near and dear to John's heart, is going to run this weekend. It looks like we're going to have a very, very big field there. It looks like probably a full field. The Test as well looks like it's going to have a good field on Saturday. Grade 1 for fillies. A couple of nice horses in there. Always Karina, who I'm very interested in. She's a TDN Rising Star. Obligatory, who won the 8 Bells. Search Results, obviously the Kentucky Oaks winner. So that's something to look forward to. The La Jolla for 3-year-old turf or 3-year-old turf horses at Del Mar. The Prix Maurice de Guise, which is for 6.5 furlongs, a Group 1 in France, is going to have a huge field. The Adirondack on Sunday for 2-year-old fillies, a great 2 at Saratoga, and the Saratoga Oaks as well is going to be Sunday. And then that will lead into next week. We've got the Beverly D and the former Arlington Million, the Grade 1 turf races the following weekend in Illinois, which is probably going to be unfortunately the final big card at Arlington Park. But yeah, there's so much action this weekend that we're looking forward to. It's obviously headlined by the Whitney, but there's a little something for everybody. Saratoga, Mountaineer, France, Del Mar, what have you. If you're near a track, get out there and enjoy the races this weekend. We'll be right back after this message from Legacy Bloodstock.
Being a small family business, I guess we're part of a dying breed. We're really grateful for the people that entrust us. We know it's a huge responsibility.
We're always with your horse every step of the way. When it comes to being at the sales ground, showing your horses, we are with your horse.
Just driving up and down the road every day, there's not a time that I don't look out and feel a responsibility to the sport, the animal, the people that come to invest in the game. I want to see as many people enjoy this sport as they possibly can, because we do have the most beautiful sport in the world.
The Green Group Guest of the Week is sponsored by The Green Group, an accounting, tax, consulting, and advisory firm specializing in the thoroughbred industry. With over 500 clients in the horse business, they have proven strategies to save you taxes. Learn more about how they can help you at www.greenco.com. So we're thrilled to welcome back returning guest, Acacia Courtney, NYRA TV host, Gulfstream host, Fox Sports TV host. Thanks for joining us, Acacia.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
Well, we're so glad to have you. We're so glad you're able to jump in today. So, you've been back at Saratoga for a couple of weeks now. We talked to Maggie a couple of weeks ago, just kind of about the difference. It's, I think any track in the world, there's no bigger difference than Saratoga with fans and without fans. What has it been like for you to kind of walk through the backyard and get that energy back from the fans at Saratoga?
Well, I think you said the key word, and that's the energy. And that's one of the greatest things about horse racing is the swell of the crowd and people cheering. And, if there's a photo finish, you hear the groan one way or the other. And I think that throughout the past year, we almost kind of got used to it being quiet. And I remember the first couple of days, for me, it was down at Gulfstream, the Pegasus this year, and Florida Derby, just a couple of big days where we actually had a crowd, and then kind of back to quiet in New York for a little while. Whereas also Belmont is so massive. So when you have people there, it's still not quite the same as having people at Saratoga. So opening day was just felt so great. It really just, everybody seemed happy. Everybody was enjoying themselves, even if their tickets were losing. And I'm getting a chance to see some of the fans, people coming over and saying that they had watched our show during COVID, during quarantine, and how much they appreciated what we had been doing. It really meant a lot, because it really was. And I always say, you don't want to sound spoiled, because I was one of the few people that got to be at Saratoga last summer. But you were drained at the end of the day because there was no crowd. There wasn't the same level of excitement as there is this year.
Hey, Acacia, thanks for joining us. And in this show, we've delved in a lot to the Jim Dandy, and all three of us gave, thumbs up, of course, to Central Quality. I think John was the most enthusiastic among us. But then again, as has been the case in virtually all of his races, he didn't blow anybody away. So why don't you just join the chorus here? Tell us what you thought of these Central Quality's race in the Jim Dandy.
Well, I think you're right. He never really does anything more than he needs to. That's in his races. That's in his workouts. I'd say in his workouts at Saratoga leading up to the Jim Dandy, that was the most energy on a gallop out that I'd ever seen from him. Leading into the Derby, I thought he kind of looked asleep, his workouts leading into it. But just knowing that that's typical for him. And I think that's really a key thing, is knowing what's the usual for that particular horse. Speaking to trainer Brad Cox after the race, immediately after, he said, I feel like Essential Quality thinks he's on vacation right now. He's enjoying Saratoga a little bit much, and he's carrying a lot of extra weight. And you could almost kind of see it, that he looked bigger than he typically did. And to be honest, he's not a horse that I have seen a million times throughout his career, a few times here and there, but obviously watched a lot. But you could see it. He's a more robust build now. And so I think you're going to see a much fitter, much sharper horse going into the Travers, because carrying weight was the first thing that Brad said to me afterwards. And, maybe that's a key, that he wasn't quite as cranked up. He wasn't quite as fit coming into this race. He was also wide on both turns. So was it the most dominant, that's it, he's going to be a lot for the Travers type of performance? No, but to be honest, I wasn't really expecting that, because that's kind of a typical Essential Quality. And I thought Brad's comments right after were pretty key.
Yeah, and as somebody who does carry a lot of extra weight after they leave Saratoga, I can totally understand.
We all feel that way.
Quality, I get it. I mean, there's good food there. I mean, it's great. Acacia, aside from the racing, there's also some very big sales coming up at Saratoga, and you're obviously very involved with your podcast about talking about upcoming sales. What are you hearing about the yearling sales, and also what are you looking forward to attending the sales?
I think it's going to be some fireworks coming back. It's the 100th anniversary of the Fasig-Tipton Select Yearling Sale. We didn't get to have that sale or the New York Bred Yearling Sale last summer in Saratoga. So I think it was a real hit for horsemen here in New York, and owners that look forward and point to those particular sales, especially for the New York Bred Sale, where they had kind of shuffled some things around. Some of those horses sold in Kentucky or sold privately. Big hit for the New York breeders as well, who really plan for that. So I think that it's a lot of excitement on the behalf of people that are getting to sell their horses this summer, and people really looking forward to it. We've seen some of the commercials in that it's a great cocktail party where they also sell expensive horses, and that's very true. So it's always fun to get a chance to kind of follow along with some of the action. As far as me looking at some of the pedigrees and some of the horses that we're going to get a chance to see, some new stallions like Triple Crown winner Justify, who we're going to get a chance to see his first yearlings. Of course, we saw some at the July sale, but this will be the first time that many people, myself included, will get a look at some of those new stallions. City of Light has been really highly regarded coming in with his first crop. And the thing about the Saratoga sale is that it's a smaller sales book. It's a higher level of physical and of pedigree. So you're really going to see the best of the best. And I got a chance to speak to Conrad Banderoff from Denali Stud on last week's episode of my podcast, and just some of the monster pedigrees that they have in their consignment, including one from the family of Beholder and Mendelssohn, that, unbelievable female family. And the whole sale is like that. So I'm really excited about it, and really glad that we get to bring that back to Saratoga.
Yeah, and just to plug Acacia's podcast, In the Ring, it's a great pedigree and sales pack. We usually don't plug other podcasts, but this is a good one. You want to make sure.
I appreciate it. John's been a guest, and which I much appreciate, and it's been really fun, getting a chance to kind of look into that side of the industry.
Yeah, and you do a great job, and it's kind of a segment of the industry that I think isn't covered in that way. So shout out to you, and the listeners should check it out. But I wanted to ask back on the racetrack about the first couple weeks of Saratoga from a horse performance standpoint. I think there were a lot that stood out. Jackie's Warrior, we talked about him before, how dazzling he was. Golden Pal, a couple other ones. Who has stood out to you so far at this meet on the racetrack, and why?
Well, Jackie's Warrior is definitely the one that comes to mind. I'm glad you mentioned him. I was standing in the rain in the paddock for that delay, and trying to find any way to fill on our show, because we couldn't go off air and nobody really knowing what happens. But that's Saratoga for you, and the skies just open up. But you know what? He was worth the wait. And for me, one of the coolest things was that he's such a big, solid horse, but he has such a presence about him. And when he came into the winner's circle, I don't think I've ever really seen it quite like that, where Steve Asterson was applauding him and was just like, you could see he was in awe of the horse, which I thought was really cool from a guy that's obviously been around some of the best horses, in history when you think of it, and on the brink of history himself too, and tying the record for most wins by a trainer in North America. So I thought that was really special. I thought Witt's performance in the Sanford, as far as 2-year-olds go, was pretty jaw-dropping. The fact that he missed the break again and then was able able to overcome that, and what I thought was a pretty salty group. So I thought that was pretty key. And as far as the 3-year-old group does go, what we saw from Dynamic One and the Curlin, as well as Essential Quality, I think makes the Travers pretty interesting moving forward.
Hey, Acacia, so let's look ahead to this weekend, and the Whitney is going to be an absolutely fantastic race. And excuse me for asking the obvious corny question, but I'll ask anyways. Being a female and that Swiss Skydiver is a female horse and she takes on the boys and beats them, has that made you even more of a fan of her? And, frankly, I love this filly because of the way they've campaigned her. I don't see her having any chance, the Whitney. Can you change my mind about that?
To be honest with you, I felt that way going into the Preakness at first because she couldn't run down Art Collector and the Bluegrass leading into the Preakness. And I was like, well, what makes them think she's going to win at 1 3/16 in the Preakness? And she was so tough to not let Authentic go by. That said, coming into the Whitney, it's now older horses. It's, layoff that she has to deal with. It was not the original plan. The original plan was to go Shuvi to Personal Ensign. So instead, they're going to the Whitney. And listen, I have the utmost respect for Ken McPeak because he's not afraid to take a chance. And I think that a horse like Crazy Beautiful has been a really good example of how Ken McPeak campaigns horses. She's a cut below the other 3-year-old fillies that we've seen, and yet she's been able to rack up the graded stakes because he's not afraid to ship her and take opportunities. And I think we've seen the same thing with Swiss Skydiver, and she's so durable. But of course, given the fact that she was in the barn where we did have the equine herpes, one horse showing symptoms on the backside at Saratoga, that resulted in a quarantine for Ken McPeak's horses, different training hours. She's typically the filly that likes to go out when the track opens. I know that when I had to get there at 5:30 every morning Preakness week to see her train because she was going out first because that's what she liked to do. So instead, now she's not able, or at least now things are back to normal, but during that quarantine, not able to go out until later. So a lot of things have changed, and her last couple of efforts haven't been her best. So I do feel like she's coming in facing the boys this time in a different situation than she was in the Preakness. That said, I am a tremendous fan of hers. I love how tough she is. And I love how much the connections have been willing to take a shot with her because who knows when you're going to get another one like her and be able to run a filly like that in these races.
Right. And Acacia, one of the things that we love about Saratoga, obviously, are some of these top graded stake races for older horses and 3-year-olds. But it's also a place where everyone brings their best babies. And every single baby race, every single maiden race, allowance race, stake race there seems to be a street fight. When babies are coming in, especially ones that haven't run before, and you're watching them in the paddock, what are you looking for? Because you always give great insight, from the paddock with these baby races.
I think one of the biggest things about the 2-year-old races is at this point, it's not so much who do you think is going to be the best runner in the field. It's who's ready now. A lot of people are wanting to point to Saratoga. There's no feeling like having a 2-year-old win first time out at Saratoga. And owners are able to come now. It's excitement. There's a lot of things surrounding it. And you also don't know sometimes behind the scenes with the condition book. Maybe this is a stepping stone, a sprint race to a longer turf race down the road, or the race you wanted didn't fill and you have to go in here instead. There's a lot of that behind the scenes stuff. So for me, it's always who fits the conditions at this point, and who I think has that combination of being fit, being well prepared, but also mentally being mature and being ready for that. You can train there in the morning and you can have a horse that shows a lot in the morning, but do they mentally carry that over to the afternoon? So those are some things that I look for as well. Obviously, they're horses, they're young horses. They're going to make you humble, that's for sure, when you're watching these races. But I think we've seen some great 2-year-old performances so far. And it's exciting as we will get a chance, obviously, leading forward to races like the Hopeful and the Spinaway. There's some nice New York bred stakes races as well for the babies, too.
Acacia, thank you so much for jumping on with us. We appreciate the insight, as always, and we look forward to watching you and the rest of the crew, the rest of the meet.
Thanks so much. Looking forward to a lot more great racing. Thanks, guys.
Great job. Hey, Acacia, we have, just for future reference, we have a French filly that we bought named Cheer Up Sleepy Jean.
Sorry?
Cheer Up Sleepy Jean.
Okay.
It's all
I love it. Monkey song.
The monkey song, Cheer Up Sleepy Jean. So she's going to run in the Bolton Landing, but she's already multiple graded stakes placed, and we're hoping that she's going to continue to develop. But, I'm not going to be there, or I am going to be there that day, but just in case you do your homework and you like her. She's actually a really nice filly, and she came over a couple of weeks ago and is training great there. So.
That's awesome. Best of luck. I love the name. I'm actually, not a lot of people know this, but I used to play with my Barbies to the Monkeys. I'm a big fan. It's probably there somewhere, like on a VHS. So very nice. We have it.
We have a talented video editing crew. Can we CGI that? We had one of those 5 CD players that rotated, which was at the time the coolest, most cutting edge thing. Yep. So I had the Monkeys, the Beatles, there was a Shakira in there, and then Nirvana. It was very eclectic music.
Nirvana, nice.
I'm with you there. Yeah, my Spotify shuffle, I can never do it at a party because I hit shuffle and it plays
and it's
1950, 2020, 1980, 2005. Yeah. I never puts out.
I hear you.
All right. Thanks, Acacia. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Acacia. Great job.
Okay, take care.
The Green Group Guest of the Week is sponsored by The Green Group, an accounting, tax, consulting, and advisory firm specializing in the thoroughbred industry. As this week's Green Group Guest of the Week, Acacia Courtney will receive a free 1-hour tax consultation. Learn more at greenco.com. We'll be right back after this message from The Green Group.
Why do the most successful owners, breeders, and horsemen select the Green Group as their tax advisor? We simply save them money and know how to make them more successful. Over the past 40 years, founder Leonard Green has owned and bred some of the best racehorses in the history of the sport. His in-depth, hands-on industry knowledge, combined with cutting-edge tax-saving strategies, has produced positive results for his clientele and has made the Green Group the top-rated accounting and tax firm in the business. For a confidential and complimentary consultation, contact us at 732-634-5100 or visit our website at www.greenco.com. The Green Group, proven strategies to save you taxes.
All right, so that's going to do it for this week's edition of the TDN Writers Room, presented by Keeneland, home of the world's yearling sale. Make plans to attend the Keeneland September yearling sale beginning Monday, September 13th. You can learn more at theworldsyearlingsale.com. I want to thank Bill Finley, John Green, our Green Group guest of the week, Acacia Courtney, our producer, Patty Wolf, our associate producer, Katie Ritz, and our editors, Anthony LaRocca, Aaliyah LaRocca, and Nathan Wilkinson. Thank you so much for watching. We will be back in the studio next week, and the week after that will be our 100th show live from Saratoga. See you next week.